Hey there, Gold Derby. We are approaching the 96th Academy Awards on March 10th, and we are here to give our final-ish Oscar predictions leading up to that Sunday. I'm here with my colleagues Ray Richmond, Marcus James Dixon, and Daniel Montgomery. Once again, welcoming our special guest expert, Tariq Khan. Listen, guys, let's just get into Best Picture first, because I think we all agree, there was some debate early on, like, can it win in the preferential ballot, or is the holdovers or Poor Things or something else still in it? But we saw the PGA Awards. They have that same preferential ballot. Oppenheimer just steamrolling through this season. Can we all agree on that? I mean, what are people's thoughts? Tarek, what do you think about this race?
Yeah, there's a zero chance of Oppenheimer losing. So, yeah, I mean, they might as well just present Best Picture first because you get
Oh
out of the way.
yeah,
There's no suspense. So,
I
yeah,
like
it's over.
that.
Yeah,
It really would be.
it's already a done deal.
It is an underwhelming finale. I mean, maybe Best Actress should be last.
Exactly.
Although they did that one year with Best Actor and it turned out really badly. Uh, Daniel, do you have any thoughts?
I mean, I was early on saying like, the early front runners often trip up. I thought like maybe Poor Things, maybe the holdovers could emerge. Nothing has. I'm totally convinced that Oppenheimer
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Although
I don't
I
think
don't call anything a lock at the Oscars, because Shakespeare in Love and Crash and Olivia Colman. So there's always an outside chance, but this chance is so far outside that I can't even predict it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we need to go into analytics on this one, and probably even less so on the next category, Best Director, Christopher Nolan, also just winning everything from BAFTA to EGA, and everything in between. So, I mean, we could debate who's second or third, but I think we're here to talk about the winners. Ray,
I,
do you
I,
have
I
thoughts
think
on
I think
this?
a bigger question might be: will all five of the nominees show up?
Mm.
If I know Christopher Nolan's winning, do I absolutely want to show up? I don't know.
I would. I mean, then I would be relaxed. Like, this is a party for me. Marcus, any thoughts?
Yeah, I want to go back to Best Picture for a second. I actually have Cocaine Bear winning Best Picture, and I have Oppenheimer in second. So we're not all the same here. And then director Christopher Nolan, yada yada yada. But listen, I'm really happy for Christopher Nolan. Like he's one of my favorite filmmakers of all time. I mean, Interstellar, Inception, Memento. Like he's finally winning Best Director. Like I just want to applaud that for one
It
second.
is exciting. It's not his fault that he made the award season so boring in this category. I mean, it's his accomplishment. Daniel, what do you think?
I mean, it is kind of his fault he made this award season so boring because he's the one who made the movie. But in the sense that it's deserved. One of our writers, Jeffrey Kerr, wrote an article recently comparing this to the Schindler's List year, where it was also a coronation because Steven Spielberg had been a blockbuster director for a couple of decades at that point, and he had 5 Oscar nominations before going into Schindler's List, and then he finally won Picture and Director. And this year, it looks like it's going to be the same thing, where Christopher Nolan wins at least Picture and Director. But we'll talk about screenplay.
Yeah, it's a great comparison. Tarek?
Well, yeah, quick question. Did any of you meet Christopher Nolan this award season? Because I know about 10 years ago, there was an interstellar lunch in New York City. And Daniel, you and I recall this. We spent about 15 minutes talking to Christopher. And he was so gracious and just so warm and friendly. And remember, we both told him that he would win the Oscar someday for Best Director. So I'm sure he'll thank both of us when he wins. So
Although in hindsight, I still would have given him Best Director for Interstellar. I'm in the
Yes.
minority who thinks that's his best film.
It is his best. I totally agree with you.
Well, let's get into one that's now a very hot race. Best Actress. So Emma Stone had been winning her way through the award season, and then here comes Lily Gladstone, which we were watching out for at the SAG Awards, and gets that victory there. And now this is a two-person race. I mean, I think this is like a coin flip. I've been going back and forth on this. I had Emma Stone all season. I recently switched to Lily just because I feel like the importance of her winning could factor in.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
I'm just giving that and the SAG win a little more credence than a Critics' Choice Award, which I don't think matters at all, and BAFTA. And BAFTA and SAG, they sort of go back and forth on who's better at predicting this race. Tariq, where are you on this?
Okay, well, between those two, I would say that Emma Stone does have the edge because she hit all the precursors, did not miss any one of them, and she won the most, namely BAFTA, where Gladstone wasn't even nominated. And Poor Things is a stronger Best Picture contender, 11 nominations. Killers missed Best Actor, missed Best Screenplay, and also Emma Stone. She is the sole lead of Poor Things. She carries the movie. Lily Gladstone in Killers, she really is, semi-supporting. Normally, when you're a borderline lead to win, you have to be really flashy, really catchy, just really extravagant, like, let's say, Olivia Colman, The Favorite, or even Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs. Lily Gladstone, I don't know that she does. So I would give between those two the edge. However, I don't know what you're hearing, but in my conversations with Oscar voters the past week or so, I'm still hearing a lot of votes for Sandra Hüller, and her name is showing up on a lot of anonymous ballots. I think she is not out of the race. If Gladstone and Stone split the vote, Hüller could win. I know you're going to say she lost BAFTA, and that's a good criticism. But here's the thing: she lost BAFTA because there was no Gladstone at BAFTA, and they were trying to predict the winner. So they voted for Emma because she was the stronger contender for the Oscar in their minds. And also at BAFTA, Hüller was a double nominee. She was nominated supporting for Zone of Interest. That film really overperformed at BAFTA. So I think she got a lot of votes for supporting actress as well, and ended up going empty-handed. So the Oscar ballot, they're in one category, Best Actress for Anatomy of a Fall. She's in two Best Picture nominees, films that have Best Director nominations. So with the increasingly international makeup of the Academy, it really is possible. And really, couldn't we use one big shocker at the Oscars? I mean, Sandra Hüller coming out of nowhere when we said it was impossible. So I'm not predicting it, but it really could happen.
Well, let me turn this around a little bit. Wouldn't Sandra Hüller ultimately hurt Emma Stone more than she would Lily Gladstone, based on the European sector of people voting? I feel like she's pulling more from Lily than she would from Emma, or she's pulling more from Emma than she would from Lily.
That's possible. That's possible. One thing as well, I just want to add here is that voters now knowing that the other acting races are pretty much decided, a lot of voters want to see a surprise. And a lot of them, I think, actually could just get a little squirrely and say, hey, you know what, I'm just going to go for it, vote for Hüller, because there's not been one person I've spoken to, one Academy member, who was not raved about that film and raved about that performance. So her name on the ballot there, a lot of people will check her name off. And again, if the Stone split, I mean, if 60% of the voters go for those two and it goes down the middle, 30-30, Sandra Hüller could win with 31%. And she can get that percentage. So it really is possible.
Daniel, how about you? Where are you on this race?
I'm on Lily Gladstone. I've had her from for a long while now, since before the nominations. It's probably my favorite performance in this category of these nominees. And the SAG Award, I thought I was dumb for keeping her at the SAG Awards, to be completely honest, and I was very happy to be vindicated by that. But it reminds me of last year's race, where we had a previous Oscar winner, Cate Blanchett, win Golden Globe, Critics' Choice, BAFTA, and then you had a historic first-timer, Michelle Yeoh, win Golden Globe and SAG, and then the Oscar. Here you've got the similar thing with Emma Stone has the Golden Globe and Critics' Choice and BAFTA, and Lily Gladstone has Golden Globe and SAG, and then thus would win the Oscar. A couple of major differences, of course. Michelle Yeoh was in the Best Picture frontrunner, and Lily Gladstone is not. Michelle Yeoh got the BAFTA nomination, at least, and Lily Gladstone was snubbed entirely. So those things give me pause. So I don't think it's an exact carbon copy of last year, but I do think Emma Stone having won recently, I don't think voters care that much. Like, we saw how much they've given to Frances McDormand year after year after year. But I think enough, in a close race, that could cost enough votes to put the historic first-time potential champ ahead. And I agree with Tariq that Sandra Hüller still has a chance at this. I think it's a two-person race with a potential spoiler. But yeah, I'm sticking with Lily.
And there's not a lot of argument for like the films they're in hurting them. I mean, these are three films that received a lot of love with the Academy. I mean, they got in most of the places they all needed to. I don't know how many they're all going to win, but it's not like they didn't like Killers of the Flower Moon. Marcus, what are your thoughts?
If I was an Oscar voter, I would pick the person who impressed me the most, the person with the physical transformation and the one who was swimming her ass off in that pool, Annette Bening. You get my vote. But I realize, I'm in a minority here. So I'm gonna go with the SAG prediction because I think that's the smarter bet. So I have Lily winning, even though, I mean, look, there was a big conversation earlier this season. Is she supporting? Is she lead? She's only in 27% of the movie, according to Matthew Stewart. And so I don't know. I am wondering if it's going to be Emma who dominates her movie compared to someone who's only in a fourth of her movie. But I think the moment we're all expecting this great moment on the stage, there's going to be a standing ovation for Lily, and I kind of want to see it.
Ray.
Well, ironically, I think actually Sandra Hüller is going to be actually pulling from Trump more than Biden. So I may be in a minority on that view. No, I've had Emma all season here because I just think she's just such a dynamo in Poor Things, and without her, there's no movie. Without that performance, but it's I don't think Lily is going to be denied. I think that the indigenous Native American angle is going to predominate here, and I've spoken to several. I'm taking the Tariq angle here. I've spoken to several voters, and the several that I've spoken to are all unanimously hate Poor Things. Now, I am not in that camp, as you know. I love the film, but I feel like Lily's ascension is as much a rejection of Poor Things as it is an endorsement of her performance in Killers of the Flower Moon. And I feel like that can't be discounted. I think after the SAG win, I think it's a natural piece of the momentum puzzle that she's going to then take the Oscar. And obviously it's still a race. I still think Best Actor is a race, but we haven't gotten around to talking about that yet. But no, I feel when I'm sitting there watching on Oscar night, it's hard for me to think of seeing Emma Stone giving her speech, and it's really easy for me to see Lily Gladstone giving her speech.
Mm-hmm. So the Miss Cleo method.
Exactly.
So we're 4-1, which is kind of surprising, but I think we can all admit, like, there's not a bad choice. I mean, this is a 2-3 person race. I mean, I mean, there's nothing you can really go wrong with here.
True, yeah.
Correct?
One question, the narrative for Lily Gladstone, I just wonder how significant is that really? Because we saw Chadwick Boseman when he lost. We thought he was going to win. I mean, how could they deny him? That would have been such a great moment. They saved that category for the very end, and he lost. And so I just have to wonder. I mean, for example, is anyone really raving about Gladstone, saying, "Oh, that's such a masterclass in acting"? I mean, her performance was just so
I've heard
astonishing.
that.
Have you? I mean, I've heard a lot of mixed reactions to it. I mean, there's good qualities, but not everyone loves it. And Killers is a divisive film, so I mean, she could win, but she could lose as well. So it's a really slippery slope.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think we helped people very much in this game.
Right, exactly. Yes.
You're on your own, folks. I mean, I could switch before Sunday. This is one category where I could make a change.
And I agree that Lily, her performance is really more looking pained and haunted as much as it is for what she says. A lot of it is acting with her eyes, and sometimes that's hard. That's hard to get you an Oscar, but I feel like in this case it's gonna work for
her. So actor, we've got Cillian Murphy, who did prevail at SAG. A lot of people were doubting that. A lot of people didn't think that would happen. So that combined with the BAFTA, I have no doubt in my mind he's winning. I mean, he led this film. It is the biggest, greatest achievement of a film of the year. There's no doubt in my mind that he's winning this. Are people still holding out for the holdovers in Paul Giamatti or even Bradley Cooper and Maestro? And then we've got Jeffrey Wright and Coleman Domingo. Poor guys just haven't had any traction either. But also neither has Bradley Cooper. For as much as people keep bringing him up, Bradley hasn't won anything. So
I was at the Spirit Awards, and when Jeffrey Wright won Best Lead Performance, I mean, there was a standing ovation, a huge love for him, for his speech. And, you know, part of me wishes that would carry over to the Oscars, but I think we all know, you know, when BAFTA and SAG both go for the same person, it's hard for me personally to pick anyone else. So that's why I'm going with Cillian.
Tariq, how about you?
Yeah, it's over. It's Murphy. Even if he lost SAG, I think he would have won the Oscar. I kind of thought that SAG would go for Cooper, and it would have been nice for Bradley to have won one major award, especially from his peers, you know, in SAG. I think he would have been happy. But yeah, that ship has sailed. And you know, the good news is that I think both Cooper and Giamatti, they at this point must know they're going to lose, so they don't have to go nervous. They can just go and enjoy the show and have a good time and not have to worry. So maybe that's the silver lining for both of them.
Daniel, do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's still like a sliver of a chance for Giamatti. But yeah, the two industry awards going for Cillian Murphy. I mean, that's not your most Oscar typical performance to win. So the fact that it won both BAFTA and SAG, and he plays the title character and the Best Picture frontrunner on top of that. Nobody else has that kind of claim to strengthen this race. You know, if the voters want to go for holdovers, they already know they're going for you know, Divine and supporting actress, which we'll talk about, however briefly. And so yeah, I think Cillian has this. It's hard to see him losing because no one else here has really kind of established themselves in a way that would make them seem like they're poised to upset.
And Ray, you're still not sold, right? So tell us your thoughts.
I'm still about 60-40, 60 for Cillian and 40 for Paul. No, I realize that Cillian's the favorite here now. But there still is a little bit of, in my head, of the Austin Butler, Brendan Fraser from last year, where I think even after SAG, a lot of people were still picking Austin Butler for the Oscar last year when Brendan, I was pretty sure Brendan was going to win. You know, I think that Cillian's probably going to get swept up in you know, the Oppenheimer sweep, but I would still not be shocked if Paul Giamatti won. And I still have him on top right now, but I'll probably very reluctantly move him off and put him second and put Cillian first, as much as it kills me.
Well, I will say
the difference is that Butler won BAFTA. Giamatti won Critics' Choice Awards. I don't care about the Critics' Choice Awards.
No.
After BAFTA and SAG, I mean, those awards matter. Critics' Choice, it's like, it's fine. It's cute, but it doesn't really have any meaning to me.
And where was the narrative this season about, you know, Paul Giamatti he's never won an Oscar before. This is his chance. Like that really didn't come to
it didn't surface.
You didn't hear that a lot.
I think that the problem is that you have three major actors in this category, the top three, Murphy, Giamatti, Cooper. None of them's won an Oscar before. They've put in a combined probably century in the industry. You know, but Cooper ended up getting that narrative because he has accumulated so many nominations over such a short time. Whereas Cillian, this is his first nomination. Paul Giamatti, this is only his second nomination. So it didn't look like they were overdue in the way that they really are, having worked as long as they have.
The next time Paul is nominated at the Oscar, I bet this narrative will come forward. Like, this is his third. He's never won. He's, you know, almost 60 years old. So the next time, Paul, is your time.
I mean, it depends on the movie because that's Annette Bening is going through that right now, and it's not helping.
Mhm.
Supporting actress, I think this is a done deal as well. Divine Joy Randolph has just steamrolled award season. Both supporting categories are just steamrollers this year. But then you have Danielle Brooks, Emily Blunt, Jodie Foster, America Ferrera. But I mean, I can't see anything other than Divine Joy Randolph at this point. It's hard.
Even though this didn't look like an award season sweeping performance, clearly we underestimated it. She's yeah, it would take sort of an act of God for her to lose this now. I don't see that happening. I went down with the Danielle Brooks ship for the last time at SAG, and I'm not doing that again. Marcus.
I got off of her, so don't blame me.
I know. And I think Tariq also had persuaded me a little bit.
Yes. Hey, folks, you can blame me. And I was wrong all season. And to admit that you're wrong, that is to be divine, or in this case, Davine. And Davine, she sent me this is the holdovers tote bag. And she said, Tariq, you can put your Danielle Brooks prediction in this bag. And so that's where it is. Davine, congratulations. You won. Wrong. It's over. So well done.
Yeah.
I think the other supporting is over too.
Daniel, do you have any words on this? Do you want to chime in?
Yeah, it's just, it's Davine. The just like in Best Actor, like trying to come up with a reasoning for someone to upset, it's very hard to think of because no one else has even really been a factor with her in the race since pretty much January.
Divine, please don't bring a paper to the podium. Please don't.
You know she is.
She's bringing a paper. You know who else brought a paper the whole season was Patricia Arquette. And she also gave very good speeches, but she was always reading. So sometimes they just need that. But the next race also, Robert Downey Jr., Ryan Gosling, Robert De Niro, Sterling K. Brown, Mark Ruffalo. This supporting actor race has gone to Robert Downey Jr. straight across the board. So no changes expected.
No. This one was over. This was over before award season began, really.
I put Sterling in second. He's just so beloved. And he was on the Graham Norton show, I think it was, and he's like, I'm just going to the Oscars to have fun because I know Robert Downey Jr. is winning. And I'm like, I love that attitude. I'm putting you in second for that.
And you know what? Looking at that man's physique in American Fiction almost made me gay immediately.
I mean, I said this somewhere else, but I'm like with Ryan Gosling and Sterling K. Brown, this is the most abs forward
oh my
supporting
God.
actor lineup in Oscar history.
It's true.
Yeah, does anyone need to say anything more?
No.
We'll keep this.
No, not really.
We might as well keep this as short as we can. Adapted screenplay. Now, here's an interesting race. Leading our odds is Oppenheimer, followed by American Fiction, Barbie, Poor Things, and The Zone of Interest. I'm actually going with American Fiction here. It won the BAFTA, but I had American Fiction before BAFTAs. I think it's about writing. It's the perfect type of story and movie to come through and win this type of award. I don't think Oppenheimer is going to win everything. And I think American Fiction overperformed at the Oscars compared to where it did everywhere else. So I think there's a lot of love for this movie, and this is where they're going to award the film. Does anyone else have American Fiction?
Yeah, I switched after BAFTA. I was surprised it won BAFTA because, it's not called British fiction. It's a very American story, but they still went with it, and that was very, very important to me. So that's why I switched.
Danny, why are you there?
I switched because of I can't remember what I had. I might have had like Barbie before BAFTA, but the fact that American Fiction won BAFTA, not just the fact that it's an American story, that was its only BAFTA nomination. The BAFTAs did not love this movie across the board, and they still gave it adapted screenplay. And with a sweeper like Oppenheimer is likely to be, like we've seen films win picture, director, screenplay, Parasite, Birdman, but those had won those along the way somewhere. Whereas Oppenheimer just can't catch a break for its script. Like it lost to Anatomy of a Fall at the Golden Globes. It lost to American Fiction at Critics' Choice. And then it lost to American Fiction again, even when Oppenheimer was the juggernaut at the BAFTAs. It lost to Little American Fiction at the BAFTAs too. So I have to think that that's a sign that it wins the Oscar and it becomes one of those like sole screenplay winners, like the screenplay as consolation prize winners, kind of like Get Out and Promising Young Woman, where it wins the writing award for a very kind of twisty social commentary kind of script. So yeah, I think it's fiction.
Tar, you disagree?
Yeah, I think it's Oppenheimer. I think that, well, one important stat, in the past 14 years, since we've had the expanded Best Picture field, the Best Picture winner has won a screenplay award 11 out of 14 times. And the times that it lost, it was occasions like, let's say, The Artist, which was a silent film, or The Shape of Water, or Nomadland, films which were not so dialogue driven. And Oppenheimer, it is a very dialogue driven film. Christopher Nolan had to take that book and condense it into a 3-hour film, which was a lot of work. I think required a lot of research. And I think it's the greater achievement in screenwriting. So with Oppenheimer being so strong for Best Picture, I mean, 13 nominations compared to 4 for American Fiction. For me, it's hard to see Oppenheimer losing for screenplay. And in the cases of people winning screenplay as a consolation prize, those are typically when they're nominated for director as well. You mentioned Emerald Fennell for Promising Young Woman or Jordan Peele for Get Out. I mean, they were nominated for directing as well. So, but Cord Jefferson, he is not up for Best Director. American Fiction, it's not even a top 5 Best Picture contender, I don't think. So I don't think the desire to give that an award, I don't think that is that strong. So I think Oppenheimer, just being so strong, it's going to be really hard for Christopher Nolan to lose here.
Right.
I have to agree with Tariq here. Marcus Daniel Denton, I think your problem here is that you're using logic. And I don't know that logic really comes into play here. I totally would buy into what you're how the points you guys were making about it being the best script, and it is. I watched it the other night with my wife, who loved it even more than I did. And it's a terrifically told, incredibly arched story. But it's everything I think is going to get swept up in the Oppenheimer tornado, and this is probably going to be one of those things. For a long time, I agreed that Barbie was probably going to be the favorite, just because they were going to want to make up for the fact that Greta Gerwig didn't get a nomination and Margot Robbie didn't get nominated. It's sort of like, well, we'll show you, we'll give Barbie the screenplay award. But for one thing, I think Barbie's miscast as an adapted screenplay. It still doesn't make sense to me that it's adapted from what? A doll box? It still doesn't make sense to me that it's adapted. It still should be original. And I know it's original at the WGA. So I think American Fiction is by far the best script, and I think it's going to lose.
All right, so we're 3-2 on that, and that'll be interesting to see how that pans out.
And quick thing, if I may, 20 years ago, The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, that went into the Academy Awards. And I did not think that film would win everything. I thought it would lose for screenplay because there's so many chances to, honor Peter Jackson. Why would they give him a screenplay as well? And it won there. And I think that with Oppenheimer being so strong, I think that its juggernaut can carry it through to victory.
Yeah, I think Oppenheimer was overly talky. I mean, I'm in the minority in not thinking it was the best film of the year. I feel like there was too much chatter over 3 hours, and I lost.
You wanted more bombs, less talking, more bombs.
Well, exactly. I wanted a little bit of some more nukes and some more flashes, and instead I just got a bunch of words. But yeah. Anyway, yeah, we probably spent enough time on adapted screenplay.
So original screenplay, Anatomy of a Fall has emerged as the front runner, but then we've still got The Holdovers, which some people are still holding on to, and then Past Lives, Maestro, and May December. I'm going with Anatomy of a Fall. It won that surprise Golden Globe and continued its run at the BAFTAs. So, Daniel, let's start with you on this one.
I was holding on to the holdovers for a long while, just because there was a point where it looked like it could win 3 Oscars, Divine, Paul Giamatti, and maybe screenplay. And now I'm thinking, yeah, Anatomy of a Fall. It's screenplay. Whenever it's screenplay is eligible, it seems to, or nominated, it seems to be winning. At the Golden Globes, where they combine adapted and original, it won. They didn't. I don't think they even nominated it at Critics' Choice. But then BAFTAs, it took that to the Academy really loved this film. It's up for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress. It's a very script forward film. I think Anatomy, and as Tariq was mentioning for in the original category, it's an opportunity to award the director when they're not going to give her Best Director. So,
Right.
yeah.
Ray, what are your thoughts?
I keep going back and forth on this. I personally love the holdovers, so sometimes that clouds my judgment of what should win or what's going to win. It's the back and forth with that. I still have the holdovers on top, but I realize Anatomy of a Fall has really has the momentum and the wind at its back at this point, and so I'm probably going to switch.
Marcus, have you made up your mind?
Yeah, and I agree with what Ray said earlier. Barbie should be here in original. It's probably one of the most original scripts of the entire year, and yet it, because of some quirky rule, it had to go into adapted. But since Barbie's not here, I'm just going to go with the overwhelming frontrunner, Anatomy of a Fall, which is also very talky, very, very talky movie. It's a courtroom. It's a murder mystery. It's very accessible. Everyone loves this movie. I don't know anybody, unlike with Zone of Interest, where it is more split. This one, everyone loves Anatomy of a Fall.
And Tark, they like suspense in the screenplay, right? So where are you leaning?
Oh, right. Yeah, Anatomy is such a well-written screenplay. Jack Mahanes, who's a contributor for Gold Derby at times, he wrote this great article a few weeks back why Anatomy would win this category. I think he nailed it. And it just is such a smart, clever, compelling script. It's a chance to honor Justine Triet. Remember, Anatomy, it's not up for Best International Feature, so it's got to win somewhere. And this is a safe place. So even if it loses everything else, which it may well, it can win this award. So I think Anatomy is probably pretty safe here.
And moving on to cinematography, we've got Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, Poor Things, Maestro, and El Conde. So this is where I do have Oppenheimer on the winning train. I might not have it winning and sweeping quite as much as some of the rest of you, but this is one I do feel comfortable with. And I actually have Poor Things in second. I thought that was really creatively shot with the different lenses that they have, and Killers of the Moon in third. Does anyone not have Oppenheimer? Is this another throw your hands in the air, race is over?
Yes.
Probably over, but we should mention that we're recording this before the American Society of Cinematographers announced their winners. So that won't necessarily, even if Oppenheimer loses that, I think it still probably wins this. But we should just mention that could change things a little.
It also goes back and forth between color and black and white. So, a lot of times we see the black and white movie win this. I think this is one of the Oppenheimer locks of the night, you could say, knock on wood.
They had to create all this. I don't know how people get into the backstories, but they had to create all this equipment for filming on black and white and IMAX, and it was unique. And there is a story to the cinematography in and of itself. All right, costume design. Barbie is the current frontrunner in our overall odds, followed by Poor Things, Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, and Napoleon. I'm going against the odds. I'm going with Poor Things, and I actually feel really good about it. I just don't see the Barbie costumes as the type of costumes that are generally embraced by the Academy. They like the frill, they like the gowns. There's just more of that in Poor Things, and Poor Things did prevail at the BAFTA. So I'm going Poor Things here. Is anyone going for Barbie? Does anyone want to? Okay, Daniel, talk about Barbie.
I'm going with Barbie. It's the Jacqueline Duran. She's the better known costume designer. And I think the looks in Barbie, like, I mean, it was instantly iconic. Like it was every other Halloween costume was a look from Barbie. So I don't think it's your typical winner, but I feel like the clout that Jacqueline Duran has, um, and like this is giving me shades of Black Panther a little bit, where you had the frills with the favorite that year, but they went with the more kind of unique. Although in this case, Poor Things is much more than just frills. It's very anachronistic and unusual and unique designs. Um, but it still feels like they might go a different way here than the typical. I also remember like Mad Max Fury Road winning this, and like half of the characters were shirtless. It was it was such a weird costume winner. So I think this might be one of those.
Marcus, I think it was you that made a point one time that Barbie sort of recreated some of doll designs. Talk about that and where you stand in this race.
It's one of these two. I agree with Denton that, it's probably going to be, our odds are going with Barbie. It's probably going to be the other one, Poor Things. And Poor Things' costumes are just so much more original and creative, and they stand out, they pop out. The Barbie ones are really, really good. At the same time, it's a lot of recreations of the actual dolls. So I wonder if that's going to affect the voting at all. And that's why I'm going with Poor Things. And another thing, you can't win our Gold Derby contest by going with the odds every single time. You have to pick one or two or three categories and go with, what's in second or what's in third. Or I think production design last year went to our fourth place, All Quiet on the Western Front. You have to take risks in some categories. This is one where I'm going against the odds.
Tariq, how about you?
Yeah, I think Poor Things. I think it's pretty much. I think it's a sure thing. I think the costumes are so gorgeous. I mean, and the movie's so visual. And Poor Things being the strong Best Picture contender that it is, I think they're going to check it off for several tech categories. And I think it's safe for costumes here, no question.
Ray?
No takers for Oppenheimer here. I mean, when you think of the father of the atomic bomb, don't you think of a fashion plate? I mean, come on. No, here is one we can agree Oppenheimer ain't winning. I think it's Poor Things. It really evokes the era that it's, depicting. Even though we're not completely sure what that era is, it looks like yesteryear, and it looks like, one of those. It's the costumes do so much to, to bring out the whole look and feel of kind of a Hollywood yesteryear production. And I think where Barbie would have been a sure thing was in hair and makeup, and it wasn't eligible on the short list. So that tells you what I know.
Well, let's go into film editing. We've got leading the odds Oppenheimer, and then Anatomy of a Fall, Killers of the Flower Moon, Poor Things, and The Holdovers. I think this is one Oppenheimer will continue its run, and I think Anatomy of a Fall is a strong second place. I have Killers of the Flower Moon in fifth as a protest to.
What you mean? You mean the
I
fact that a film that's 3 hours and 26 minutes wasn't well edited?
That's just my protest vote.
So you're uncommitted.
I'm uncommitted to, in placing Killers of the Flower Moon in my editing top four. So, Tariq, where do you stand on this? Is this a done race?
Let's do some editing here. Let's just call it Oppenheimer and move on. That's my vote. How's that, Brett?
Well, it moves between eras beautifully, I mean, back and forth, and it's pretty clear where we are in the story, and that really is a testament to the editing.
It's the most editing.
Yeah, it really checks all the boxes for best editing winner. It's playing with time, moving backwards and forwards through time. It's balancing tons of characters, cutting between them, and so it feels it's very much like Crash meets Everything Everywhere All at Once, you know, in one editing contender.
Well, let's go to makeup, which I think is another interesting race. For a long time, everyone had Maestro, and it's still the front runner. But then Poor Things won BAFTA, and then you've got Oppenheimer, which has a strong case, and Society of the Snow, a very interesting, intricate makeup of people freezing, and then the transformation of Helen Mirren into Golda Meir and Golda. I keep going back and forth between Poor Things and Maestro. I cannot make up my mind on this one. When I think of Maestro, I think of Bradley Cooper, and if he was like the Oscar actor frontrunner, I would feel sure. But then I think of Poor Things, and I think of Willem Dafoe, and I think of the woman in the brothel, and the fact like they painted all those tattoos on her, and there's all these different characters with hair and makeup. When I think of Maestro, I just think of that one face. It's this one is tough for me. I'm currently with Poor Things because I think it'll just sort of pick up these craft awards. And it's hard for me to imagine Maestro just winning one thing. Because I think they just generally tend to award movies in bulk at the Oscars. But
Yes,
I
they
don't
do.
know. Daniel, you have Maestro currently, correct? What are your thoughts here?
Yeah. I'm not confident because it's not like a super huge contender elsewhere. Again, we've had that trend of you know, your best makeup winner, you know, matching one of the acting winners, one of the lead acting winners. But we have also had in recent years the lone makeup winner, Bombshell won best makeup, even though you know it didn't win any of the acting categories. Vice won best makeup despite Christian Bale not winning for playing Dick Cheney. So we have seen that happen, and you know and I do wonder if Poor Things, the fact that the showiest makeup in Poor Things is Willem Dafoe, and that was the performance that was snubbed. I wonder if that, you know, will translate it all to, you know, people not voting for that makeup job. So I'm going with Maestro. I think, you know, 7 nominations. The Academy does really like it, even though it feels like it's been like an also ran pretty much everywhere. But I agree. Poor Things is like this is going to be a close one. I'm not super confident in Maestro, but I'm probably going to stick with Maestro too. Yeah.
Tariq, you've spoken about your admiration of the makeup in Society of the Snow. Are you going out on that limb, or where are you?
Honestly, I wanted to, and I think it should win because the way they had to show the physical degradation, you know, of all those deterioration of all those, you know, all those characters for all those weeks, you know, in the mountains there, and that must have been so challenging. So I think it deserves it, but it won't win. I think Maestro is out of it. I think that Bradley Cooper now being, you know, finished in the Best Actor race, and the controversy, you know, over the prosthetic nose, and also Maestro just not being a strong Best Picture contender, there being, you know, a backlash against it. I think it's probably out of it. So I think Poor Things is such a strong technical achievement. Has 11 nominations. I think they're gonna check it off in a lot of these tech categories, and then make up with Willem Dafoe and Emma Stone and the others. I mean, it was very impressive. And Poor Things reminds me in a way of the Grand Budapest Hotel, which was released, you know, a decade ago, and it won, you know, costume design and production design, which we'll get to, and also makeup as well. And really, the only makeup in that film, I think, the most impressive one was, you know, Tilda Swinton, who had a very small role, but they checked it off. So I think Poor Things is going to win. I think it's going to win 3 tech categories, and I think makeup is one of them because they will want to honor Poor Things in a number of these craft categories.
Ray, any thoughts?
Yeah, well, the thing with Society of the Snow is that wasn't makeup. They actually had people freezing to death. And so, you know, those are people who were really dedicated to their craft. No, you know, I was leaning toward Maestro, and a lot of this conversation is weeding me away from it. I think people, the one thing that has been discussed throughout Oscar season about the makeup was that prosthetic nose, even though it was overblown in Maestro, so to speak, blowing the nose. It was overblown, and it's pretty seamless when you're watching the movie. You don't even think about it. And in fact, the truth is Bradley Cooper has a pretty big schnoz himself. So it ain't like, they had to Jew him up, so to speak. And I can say Jew him up because I'm Jewish myself. But speaking of Jewish, I wouldn't completely, as ridiculous as this sounds, discount Golda, in part because of a lot of the things that are, going on in Gaza right now, in the Middle East and in Israel. And it's so timely. And I feel like, there's a little bit of thinking back on Golda Meir, and that was quite a transformation.
That includes a fake nose.
That included a fake nose too, but it didn't get the fake nose headlines that Maestro did.
Mhm.
And it's true; these were both non-Jews playing Jews. So it's which non-Jew playing a Jew is going to get the makeup award. It's the question of this year's Oscars.
I think it was underrated how offensive it was that Emma Stone was playing a baby brain transplant person, and she wasn't actually a baby brain transplant survivor. So
excellent
really,
point, Daniel. I
really,
agree.
Emma.
Now you know what? I'll
apologize.
Without all of this going around, I'll just get to the point and say I think Poor Things is winning this one. I agree with Tariq.
But is anyone else confused by the Makeup and Hairstylist Guild Awards? Because, after BAFTA, when Poor Things wins, then Maestro comes along and beats Poor Things at the Guild. So now I'm like wondering, where do you go with the Guild, or do you go with BAFTA? I wonder which one has the better overall track record. I might have to do some research, but right now I am going with Poor Things. So I don't know. I might change. This is one that I'm still probably going to change before Oscar. We still have about 10 days or so.
All right, so let's move on to Best Production Design. And here we've got Barbie ahead in the odds, followed by Poor Things, Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, and Napoleon. Here again, I'm going against the odds. I'm going with Poor Things. I'm not sure if people aren't updating their odds. I'm not sure if they think there's going to be a big difference between BAFTA and Oscars. Like, there very well could be. Or is Barbie the front runner? I still think they're gonna go the more traditional route with Poor Things. But Barbie is very bold and bright and big and fun. So maybe it is Barbie here. And I'm not completely discounting Oppenheimer either. I think this is sort of a three film race. Daniel, you have Barbie for costumes. Are you going with it for production design?
I'm sort of strategically at the moment hedging the bet because these two awards could easily go to the same film, but I'm predicting Poor Things here.
Okay.
Just following the BAFTAs where Poor Things won this. I think it won costumes there.
What if it was the reverse way and you're just totally screwed?
It could be. It absolutely could be, because honestly, the production design in Barbie is a lot showier than the costume design in Barbie. So this could just end up biting me in the ass completely. But I don't think Poor Things is going to be denied completely. I think I'm a little worried when I think about Poor Things below the line, because a lot of us got burned by The Favorite, which was seemed like it was going to win a couple of technical awards, and then it won nothing except that Olivia Colman upset. And so, like, I'm wondering if Yorgos Lanthimos is doing another costume drama, even though it's a much different kind of costume drama. If he's going to run into the same problem, I'm probably overthinking it. But that's the one thing that makes me think, okay, I wouldn't be surprised if Barbie takes both of these awards anyway, despite BAFTA. But I'm splitting the difference, and I'm going Poor Things here.
Marcus, where are you at?
Yeah, I think this is a three-way race. I'm going with Poor Things for the combo of costumes and production design. But I mean, Oppenheimer created a whole town, Los Alamos. Barbie created a whole world. But Poor Things had all of those, fun science experiments and all of the different interiors of the buildings and the big ship that they were on. Like, I think overall, Poor Things from start to finish had the better production design, I guess you could say. So that's why I'm going with that one.
And it created completely different versions of famous cities, and it was very much more. It felt to me like the film that would be sweeping this. I was surprised that Barbie did as well as it did earlier on in the season.
Ray, how about you?
I think this is actually Poor Things' strongest category. I think it has such a lush look, but it's subtle. Not that there was very much subtle about Poor Things, but it's more subtle than Barbie, for instance, which is just such eye candy and bubblegum and eye-popping graphics and visuals. This production design was sophisticated, really by comparison. I mean, there's a lot of great production design this year, and I agree Oppenheimer could also take it. Oppenheimer, could wind up with double-digit wins, which would put it among the top 5 Oscar winners of all time if it does. Throwing a little Tariq history in there, if you will. I think right now it's what Ben-Hur, Titanic, and Lord of the Rings have the records of 11 wins each, and West Side Story 10. I feel like Oppenheimer could get 9 or 10, but I hope it doesn't win this one. I think Poor Things is winning production design.
And Tariq, take us home here.
Yes, the scope of the production design in Poor Things, I mean, it is so much greater than what we saw in The Favorite. I mean, so many different settings, different cities, and just the color, the visuals. I mean, it just so mind-blowing. I don't see how Poor Things loses. And again, Poor Things being a strong Best Picture contender, 11 nominations, it's going to win several tech categories. Be prepared for the envelopes to be open and to hear Poor Things. I think it's going to win 3 craft categories, and this is probably the safest one.
So I think the next 2 categories we can do sort of a straw poll to see if anyone wants to speak. Best score, Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, Poor Things, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and American Fiction. I don't see how Oppenheimer loses at this point. It's won everything. So I know there's support for Killers of the Flower Moon. Robbie Ryan is deceased. He could get a posthumous award, but that hasn't proven to be true anywhere else. So I think we're all on Oppenheimer, correct?
Yes.
All right. And then best song. This is where Barbie for sure is going to win. Whether it's for either 2 of these, I think What Was I Made For and I'm Just Ken are numbers 1 and 2 in our odds, and that's probably where they'll finish in the vote, honestly. And then you've got American Symphony, It Never Went That Way, which was snubbed for Best Documentary. So it's interesting that it still got in for this song. Flamin' Hot, The Fire Inside, Diane Warren. I mean, they check her name like it's nobody's business for nominations. So never bet against her in nominations, but she's lost just as many. All of those. And then Killers of the Flower Moon. This was a kind of a surprise nominee. What Was I Made For? I mean, there's no question other than possibly I'm Just Ken. And we found out Ryan Gosling's performing. So that'll be
and I think that, they strategically released that info during Oscar voting, the fact that he was going to be singing it at the Oscars. And I feel like that could give it not a leg up, but a better shot. But you're right. These are interchangeable. It's like, What Was I Made For? I'm Just Ken. It's going to be one of those 2. And most likely, What Was I Made For? Which,
Yeah.
You don't vote against Billie Eilish. I think there's a rule in the Academy rule book.
And go with the ballad over the funny one. That's usually what happens when there's 2.
But they've gone for like Hard Out Here for a Pimp. That was a shocking song winner one year. And so, I mean, you never fully know. But
I think that was an acknowledgement that it really is hard out there for.
I mean,
and there's always man or Muppet. Like, I'm Just Ken is very much the man or Muppet of this category.
Yeah.
So it's got a shot.
It's got a shot, but if you're gonna go for those weird upsets, this wouldn't be my choice for where I pull that trigger, but to each their own. Sound. Now here's an interesting category because Oppenheimer has been the front runner all season long. Then Zone of Interest won the BAFTA. Zone of Interest isn't in like these Guild Awards. It's up for like a sound for a foreign film, and so the guilds are a little different with sound. And then we have Maestro, Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1, and The Creator. So here it's really between Oppenheimer and the Zone of Interest, and it's a really intriguing race because Oppenheimer is what you think of when you think of the Oscars. It is the loudest. It's going to be the most sound in terms of the bombs, at least. But is it the loudest through the whole movie? And is the zone of interest sort of background noise really the most intriguing sound to voters? And is this another award that they can give this movie? Tariq, what are your thoughts here?
I think Oppenheimer is just too strong, and there is a lot of sound in it, and I think this is an easy place for them to check Oppenheimer. So, I mean, as masterful as the sound was in Zone of Interest, and as deserving as it would be, I think it's hard for Oppenheimer to lose here.
Okay. Daniel, you have Zone of Interest, right?
Yeah, I literally switched yesterday. I did the dangerous thing where I wrote an article just making the case, like this is why I think it could win. And then as I was writing it, I was going like, oh, that does sound good. And then I switched to it.
I'm so smart.
The thing about this is that, it reminds me a little bit of visual effects. We were all assuming that Oppenheimer was, earlier on in the season was going to be like your visual effects dominant film, even though it's a film largely with people talking, and then a bomb goes off for I can't remember 5 to 10 minutes in the film. So like the visual effects weren't necessarily as prominent, and the Guild didn't go for it, or the Visual Effects Society didn't go for it. The visual effects branch didn't go for it of the Academy. So I'm not sure it's an automatic check here. And Zone of Interest, with its sound, is really layering one movie on top of another, because the Holocaust movie that we usually get that depicts what happens in Auschwitz is very deliberately left in the background, and I think that layering is such a focal point of what makes the Zone of Interest work to the people who love that film. That I think it actually might, ironically, even though it might be the subtlest sound in this category, it's the most conspicuous sound in this category, because it's like a central part of the point of the film. So in that way, it reminded me a little bit of Sound of Metal, which maybe Zone of Interest would have a better shot if it was called Sound of Interest.
Yes.
You just put sound in the title and you'll get it.
Mhm.
But in the same way, it's about the use of sound, as Sound of Metal was, even though it wasn't as big and bombastic. Although Sound of Metal had more support from the guilds, so in the sound category. So like, I'm not like 100% saying this is definitely going to happen, but I'm predicting.
I have it on top right now too, but I'm not confident that I won't switch before Sunday. I don't feel great about it, but it did win BAFTA. It's proven it can win. But I don't know if the whole Academy will go for it the same way. Ray, you're feeling Oppenheimer, right?
It's hard for me to think that they're going, basically, Zone of Interest is a film that's about what you don't hear as much as what you do hear. So it's hard for me to think that they're going to give that a sound Oscar. We're also imagining that voters are not as lazy as they probably are. And I think that for a lot of the crafts categories, they're just going, oh yeah, Oppenheimer, 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 Oppenheimer. And this is one of those that's easy to go Oppenheimer.
But the British weren't lazy.
No.
Or they were lazy.
Well, I think we know that the British are not as lazy as we are. In which, I think back in the 1700s, that wasn't the case. And that's the only reason we have a country.
Marcus, what are you thinking?
Oppenheimer is one that I have been predicting this to win Best Sound since I saw the trailer for it a year ago. So I just can't switch at this point. Imagine if I switch and then Oppenheimer wins. I would be so mad at myself. I'd never forgive myself. So this is one that I'm really not considering, even though you're all making incredibly good points. I think I'm sticking with this one.
I'm gonna go back on forth in that. I will have to check my final predictions Sunday morning, I guess. And now visual effects, this one's interesting because there are no Best Picture nominees, which makes it much more of a toss-up. Leading our odds is Godzilla -1, followed by The Creator, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Napoleon, Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1. And I think we all sort of have different opinions here. Marcus, you're with Godzilla -1, correct? You want that monster to win.
Yes, it's finally time. This is Godzilla's very first nomination at the Oscars. And the weirdest thing about this category is that BAFTA went with Poor Things, which did not get in here. And I'll tell you what, if Poor Things was nominated at the Oscars, I would be predicting it for Best Visual Effects, 100%. But it's not, so I'm going with that big old lizard boy.
See, I feel like we've seen lizards. It's very Jurassic Parky to me. I just don't know if it's really the front runner people want it to
Who are
be.
you picking?
I'm going with The Creator. I think The Creator is it's more inventive. It's more sci-fi. It's an original film. So I'm going with in that direction. And it was the front runner for a while until Godzilla sort of had this fan frenzy. But I'm going with The Creator, and I think Napoleon has a good shot because there's all these correlations with visual effects and getting other nominations. And Napoleon has other nominations.
Napoleon has 3 and The Creator has 2.
And Mission Impossible has 2. So
I think this is a way for the Academy to assuage their guilt. They were going to give it to either Bradley Cooper or Godzilla, and this way, because they're both overdue. And I feel like this is the one. Finally, they can give one to Godzilla and then think, okay, Bradley gets it next time.
Are you going with Godzilla too, Ray?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like just having seen the film, it's really fun. It's great eye-popping effects. I mean, it's always hard to pick special effects. I mean,
these are all eye-popping effects. This is the Oscars for special effects.
Yeah. It just comes down to which film you're most entertained by. Basically,
I'm just a little hesitant on I feel like we've just kind of seen this a little bit before. Daniel, you have an interesting take on this. You're going Napoleon.
I am going Napoleon. It is like I always thought it had a shot because it's the best pictureiest of these nominees, and so when there's no Best Picture nominee, we usually see the film that has the most nominations or the film that has the most prestige, like First Man, win Best Visual Effects, and then writer I mentioned previously, Jeffrey Kerr, he wrote an article pointing out that every in the last 20 years, so it's not just like 5 of the last 6, no, in the last 20 years there have only been 3 visual effects winners that weren't also nominated for production design, and
so this will be the 4th.
It
can happen. So you're saying there's a chance. That's what I'm saying.
I'm saying there's a chance, but it's so it's so weirdly rare that they match up or that they don't match up that usually something that specific I would think that's just a weird coincidence, but in this case I think maybe a lot of the people or a lot of the people in the Academy who admire the production design of the film will credit the visual effects in certain ways. So the fact that those are so closely correlated, and the fact that Napoleon has the most nominations, it's the most prestigious feeling of these nominees. So I'm going with Napoleon.
And Tariq, what about you?
Okay, a couple things here. First, I think that Godzilla -1 leads the odds at Go Derby with The Creator right behind it, I believe, right? When I speak to voters and I bring up visual effects, most of them have not seen either one of these films. And so that really concerns me. Now, with Godzilla -1, it has just this one nomination. In the past 30 years, only one film has won visual effects at the Oscars on a single nomination. And that was The Jungle Book of 2016, which was a huge commercial success. So my question is, can a low-budget Japanese Godzilla movie really win visual effects on a solo nomination? I just don't know. And then The Creator, when I mentioned that movie, a lot of voters actually confuse it with The Chosen. They think it's like a religious movie, The Creator. So
interesting.
I don't think many creator, I mean, really, the creator should win. It has by far the most impressive, dazzling visual effects. It's the greatest achievement, no question. It swept the Visual Effects Society, but I think most voters haven't seen it, and those who have, didn't love it. Its scores, at Rotten Tomatoes are just so. So I think the creator has a hard time. So in this kind of case, and I spoke to young Jack McCain's, another Goldberry, user and contributor, and we decided that in an open category, it's not the movie, it's not the movie with the best visual effects. It's the best movie that's nominated for visual effects. And in that case, it could be Mission Impossible because it was a great critical and commercial success, very strong ratings, at Rotten Tomatoes. And this is Mission Impossible's, first time being nominated at the Oscars. It does have 2 nominations, including for Best Sound as well. So with, I think, Godzilla and the creator splitting the vote, I think Mission Impossible, this could be our big tech surprise of the night. There's always one. Again, I'm going on a limb here, but I'm going to say Mission Impossible is, the one big tech shocker.
I feel like all of these could be a tech shocker for me. Because I don't know what's going to win. Marcus, did you want to say something?
I was just going to add something for all of these Godzilla haters on this panel. Who loved Godzilla -1? Steven Spielberg. He saw it 3 times, and he's basically out there campaigning for the movie. So if he calls enough of his friends, the lizard's going to win.
I'm not a Godzilla hater. I liked Godzilla -1. I'm just saying it was not, I didn't feel like it was not something visually that I haven't seen before.
So
I don't.
you're correct when you're saying you hate Godzilla.
I mean, I like all these movies. Listen, so this is going to be an interesting race to call, and it looks like we're 1 for creator, 2 for Godzilla -1, 1 for Napoleon, and 1 for Mission Impossible. So, like, between the 5 of us, we're picking 4 different movies. So,
and the winner will be Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Yeah, the winner is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
We should just do a slugfest on visual effects.
Yeah,
the whole hour.
The next race is animated feature, and it's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, The Boy and the Heron, Elemental, Nimona, and Robot Dreams. This is an interesting race as well because The Boy and the Heron, we saw pick up the Golden Globe. It won BAFTA. And then just last weekend, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse won a very important PGA award, which gives that some steam. I still have Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse winning. I think it is the most seen film in the Academy, and I just feel like it's just too big to lose. Although I fully admit The Boy and the Heron can win this, and it won at the BAFTA. So I don't know. Tariq, you're on The Boy and the Heron, right?
Yeah, I think it has more snob appeal. And again, Spider-Man being a sequel that really works against it. We've not seen sequels do well in this category at the Oscars. And also, if I'm not mistaken, The Boy and the Heron, it won both the Golden Globes and the BAFTAs. And I believe every film that has won both of those has won the Oscar for animated feature. So I think The Boy and the Heron, I think they're going to go for the more snobbish, the artistic film. And I think that's going to overcome Spider-Man.
Okay. And Ray, what are your thoughts?
Being a snob, I'm going with The Boy and the Heron. No, I just feel like, I actually think Spider-Man was the more arresting, interesting technical achievement. But I agree. I think The Boy and the Heron is the way they're going to go. That a lot of voters think, whoa, they're expecting me to go for Spider-Man, but that isn't the way I roll. So I think it's going to be Boy and the Heron.
Marcus.
Spider-Man was in my top 5. I absolutely loved it. It just feels like more of a commercial hit than a snobby awards movie. So that's why I am going with The Boy and the Heron on this one.
All right. And then Daniel, did you say?
I'm going with Boy and the Heron also. It's the snobby one. Oscar voters don't like sequels. And if you've seen Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, you know that if voters want to vote for a sequel, they'll get another bite at this apple. So, they don't need to vote for this one.
I'm just throwing it out there. The PGA has been right like every year for the last 10 years, except for they picked Lego Movie when Lego Movie didn't get nominated for the Oscars. So there's still a strong case to be made for Spider-Man, and that's the direction I'm going.
Oh, hey, Dan, quick note. The chance to honor Hayao Miyazaki one final time. I mean, that could be, a big factor as well. I mean, him being one of the most acclaimed animated filmmakers on the planet. He won for Spirited Away. That was 21 years ago. So the chance to honor him again, that could count for something. So just want to throw that out there.
All right. Well, let's get into these. Well, I forgot we have international and documentary here. I think both of these are a little bit of slam dunks as well. Documentary.
Yeah.
Does anyone not have 20 Days in Mariupol?
No, I think we all do.
Yeah.
I think that's a slam dunk. American Symphony won at the PGA, and then I looked and I'm like, oh my God, I forgot it wasn't even nominated here. So that didn't hurt this movie at all. I think that's a very strong front runner to win. And then international film, Zone of Interest. I mean, come on.
I would love
I would
Society.
go. I preferred Society of the Snow, just as a film. But yeah, Zone of Interest has all the momentum and East Snob appeal.
Yeah, I loved Society of the Snow as well. I also really liked Io Capitano. But does anyone want to make an argument? I mean, or can we move along? Zone of Interest is winning this.
Yep.
All right. So then let's get into these last three categories, which give a lot of predictors like migraines. Animated short, the current odds, which are interesting. And here's the thing to remember about these Oscar nominated shorts. There's so many people that haven't watched these, and then they go on the prediction center and then they just go with the odds. So the odds build and build and build. So if you haven't seen them, be careful with the odds because sometimes they're very good. You might get 2 out of 3, but I don't know. Like for me, I try to watch them and gauge a little bit. And it doesn't always pay off like the one I like the best wins, but sometimes I can see a movie and at least know, okay, that's the front runner and I know that's not winning. So if you can watch them, try to watch them. But best animated short, the current odds have Letter to a Pig winning, followed by War is Over, inspired by the music of John and Yoko, 95 Senses. Pachyderm, is that how you say that? And Our Uniform. So I'm going with War is Over, inspired by the music of John and Yoko. I think it's a beautiful animation, and this age group, the Oscars, they love John Lennon. I mean, like, how can this message and this animation and these songs lose? Tariq, what are your thoughts?
Okay, I saw all 5 at a movie theater the day they opened here in New York City, where I'm based. And War is Over, I think, is a slam dunk. I mean, the animation, the score from Thomas Newman is so beautiful, has an anti-war message. It leaves you leaving happy. They play the famous song, War is Over, and nothing else comes close. I sort of surveyed people in the audience afterwards, and pretty much everyone agreed that War is Over was the best one. So I don't see how it loses. Of course, don't listen to me because I could be wrong, but I think War is Over is pretty much a lock here.
Marcus, you liked 95 Senses, right?
Yes, and my goal this year is to watch all 15. I started with animated short, so I watched all 5. 95 Senses was my favorite. There's kind of a twist. If you don't know what it's about, there's a twist halfway through that makes you go, oh, okay. It makes you rethink the first half. But I totally get what Tariq's saying. I have War is Over winning in my predictions because, the title, they added John and Yoko to the title, which is absolutely genius. So you don't even have to watch it to know kind of what it's about. So that's my pick. My heart is with 95 Senses, but my brain is with War is Over. And by the way, the front runner is Letter to a Pig. That one didn't affect me as much as it did other people. So I do think what Denton's saying is correct, that some of these odds are just kind of carried over and people are not watching them and that are predicting. So make sure you watch them all if you want to get this one right.
Daniel, thoughts?
Yeah, I haven't seen these yet, but I had the default Letter to a Pig in my number 1 spot, and then I heard you guys talk, and I moved forward to number 1.
Ray, you have any thoughts here?
I've only seen Letter to a Pig and War is Over. Actually, I still need to see the other ones. I really liked Letter to a Pig, in part because I personally have written letters to pigs before, and no, it's impossible to go against something that has John and Yoko in the title. I agree now. I feel like that's especially for some voters that may be a little lazier. They're just going to see John and Yoko and just automatically put that down.
For best documentary short, we've got leading the way the ABCs of book banning, followed by The Last Repair Shop, Nine Nine and Waipao, The Barber of Little Rock, and Island in Between. I've seen all of these. They're all very good, and there is really a lack of depression this year that I appreciate. They're all, for the most part, uplifting. So I was saying offline, the ones I would text my friends to watch, like that's pure joy, is Nine Nine Waipao. So this is the one where like it's gonna bring a smile to your face. For best production value, like the most beautiful to look at, I would say The Last Repair Shop has the cinematography and this wonderful score and just great stories about music and the arts. But the ABCs of book banning, for me, has the edge because not only because of like where it sits politically and where we are as a country, and it feels important, but just there's too many adorable kids being too smart in this movie to say no to. I mean, it's impossible uh, to turn your back on that. So I feel like the ABCs of book banning has a really overwhelming is the overwhelming favorite to win here. Tariq, you've seen all of these, right? So where are you?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I saw all five. Last Repair Shop, which a lot of people are predicting, it was beautiful. The cinematography, the score, I mean, really just gorgeous. But I think it's really more style than substance. And I think ABC's of book banning does have those cute kids, has a very important message, and it's very, very well done. I wanted to see a little bit more, to be honest. It's a little bit shorter than some of the other ones, but still very well done. And I think that the subject matter alone is something that most voters do care a lot about. And in fact, I think a lot of voters who see this category, because it's on every ballot, they can vote whether they've seen them or not. I think a lot of voters will check it off just because of the subject matter, because of the title. So I think it's really hard to see ABC's book banning losing here. That's my sense.
Yeah, titles are very important in these shorts because a lot of the voters don't watch them. They just go by the title. ABC is a book banning is a genius title. It tells you exactly what it is and what it's about. And I will add Nine Nine and Waipo on Oscar nominations morning. They filmed those lovely people getting their nomination, and you should go watch it on Twitter. It's such a fun moment. But I am going with book banning on this one.
Ray, any
I
thoughts?
really loved The Last Repair Shop, and in part because uh, I have a wife who's a former arts teacher at LA Unified. But ABC's a book banning. You're right; they do go by on. Marcus is correct. They do go on titles a lot on, and that is uh, such a timely and difficult topic to be addressing at this moment, and I feel like that's going to be probably an easy winner.
Yeah. And all five of these are streaming, so check them out if you can. That's not always the case. Sometimes they're in small regional theaters, not all over the country, but every one of these is streaming, and they're all worth a watch. And finally, we get to our last category, live action short. The odds have The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar out in front, followed by The After, Red, White, and Blue, Invincible, and Night of Fortune. Now, Tariq, you're a big proponent of The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, which is the front runner. Talk about that.
Yeah, I've seen all five, and of course, this one it's been on Netflix for several months now. I think most voters have seen it, and it really is so charming, based on the classic story by Roald Dahl. I think a lot of voters grew up, reading that story, that collection of stories in that book. So, and it's so well done. It's Wes Anderson, a chance to honor him. He's never won before, and of course, familiar faces: Benedict Cumberbatch and Dev Patel and Ben Kingsley. So, it's funny. To me, there's no clear second choice here. I mean, I have Red, White, and Blue ranked second, but there's no obvious alternative. So I think Wonderful Story, wins. And also, a lot of voters, when they look at the titles, again, it's called The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. I mean, psychologically, the wonderful there, it's hard to resist. So I'd be shocked if anything else won. That's my take.
I know I'm
Based
going.
on titles, shouldn't Invincible win?
I really liked Invincible. I am going against the odds here, and I realize I could be just throwing a point away, but I am going with Red, White, and Blue. I think it's so topical. I think it's so important to where we are in the country. And it has these like a shock element that I didn't see coming, and it was a very intriguing story. The Wonderful full story of Henry Sugar. I just didn't get into it that much. I'm sorry. Like it just wasn't my jam. I know a lot of people loved it. I think it's maybe the highest rated in terms of like critics on Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb, but I loved Red, White, and Blue, and I loved Invincible. The After is very traumatic. That's on Netflix. That was like there's one scene in that I mean, it's hard to shock me, but I was like, okay, that's a lot to deal with. So I'm not sure about The After, but I'm going out on a limb here. I'm gonna go with Red, White, and Blue. It's about the need to cross state lines for abortion access, and I think we're in a very politically heightened mood right now in America, and so I feel like the ABCs of book banning and Red, White, and Blue will pair well together with the shorts. Daniel, where are your thoughts?
This is another category where I still need to catch up on the nominees, but I am going with Red, White, and Blue based on subject matter. I don't think like voters aren't usually that starstruck here. Having the biggest name doesn't usually translate to necessarily to the win. And so I could easily see them, not really being swayed by Wes Anderson. I just have this hunch that he's not winning this, and so of the other nominees, I'm betting on Red, White, and Blue.
I almost feel like it almost can work against a short where it's I feel like the shorts are for kind of like up and coming filmmakers, and then they're like, what? Like, we just saw Quaron lose last year, right? So, Marcus, where are you on this race?
This is the 8th Oscar nomination for Wes Anderson, and he's never won. It would be, we were talking about moments earlier on the stage. This would be a moment. I could see him getting a standing ovation for finally winning. I am going with The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar because you mentioned the title. It reminds me of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, like one of these aspirational titles that you just can't not vote for, or Heaven is a Traffic Jam on the 405. It's one of those. But yeah, I have Red, White, and Blue in second place. So I think it's one of those two.
It would be great to see Wes Anderson win an Oscar, but you look back at his filmography and his career, and then you think this is what he won the Oscar for. I would like just give him an honorary Oscar. If I mean, like he's done all this work and then he gets an Oscar for The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. Ray, what are your thoughts on this?
I would love to see Wes Anderson win, and I'm going with Henry Sugar here. And in part, it is the title. There's a mini mall a couple miles from me, and it has several different restaurants. These little fast food places. One is called Good China, one is Nice Italian, and one is Fantastic Donuts. And I'm like, well, I'm going to the donut place. Good, nice, fantastic. If it's the Wonderful World, that's what I'm basing my vote on. I'm basing it on the mini mall near me. No, it's a lovely story too, and I feel like this is. I don't think voters. I think it's already been said. Put too much time and effort into this stuff, and something that catches their eye is what they're gonna mark.
A lot of voters didn't vote for these categories. So, all right, so we're 3-2 on that one. So no clear consensus. There are a few categories we didn't agree on, so that's going to make for an interesting race. I mean, there's a couple years where we're like, okay, a lot of people are going to get 90 to 100%. Like for years, no one had ever gotten 100%, and then that one year, like a bunch of people got 100%. This year, I'll be very impressed if someone gets 100%, because it's not as clear cut in every category, especially those tech awards. I think it was the year Dune won everything that we got so many high scores. But regardless, it's a fun year, and the Oscars are coming up March 10th. These are our final predictions. We'll link to our prediction pages in the article because we may change a couple. I mean, I'm still going back and forth on sound, makeup, those little ones like that. But for the most part, we're pretty set. Get your predictions in before March 10th, so you can get those bragging rights. I mean, we're gonna have hopefully like 10,000 people. Who knows how many people we're going to have in the final tally for predictions. And that's quite the bragging rights if you come out on top. Any final thoughts from anyone else?
Jimmy Kimmel, don't disappoint us.
Yes.
Jimmy's great. You know what? I'm really glad he's kind of turned into the regular host. He's really, he's really smart and funny and has just the right tone, and just acerbic enough. I think he's sort of the new Billy Crystal.
Mhm.
Yes. And of course, folks, be sure to check out my monologue for Jimmy Kimmel. It'll be posted by the time this is posted. I think it should be up, and hopefully Jimmy will use some of my jokes, and he'll be the host. So check those out.
You're going to put us on the map, Tariq.
That's right. That's my goal. So
If he
All right.
uses
Well,
your
thanks, everyone.
jokes, does that technically make you eligible for the Emmy for Best Variety Special Writing?
that's right. Yes, yes. And of course I'll lose, but honor just nominated. So going for.
I'm voting for him.
Well, let's wrap it up. Thanks, everyone. And again, everyone go make your predictions, and we'll be back with afterthoughts and all kinds of recaps and all kinds of coverage on the day of the Oscars. So check that out. All right. See y'all.